I live alone in a secluded house in the mountainous region near Petropolis. It's a quiet place, surrounded by dense forest, perfect for anyone looking to escape the chaos of Rio de Janeiro on weekends and holidays. My only constant companion is Barnaby. Barnaby is, or was, a 4-year-old golden retriever. 40 kilos of pure love, with fluffy golden fur. He's the kind of dog that gets scared of his own farts and brings you slippers when you get home, wagging his tail so hard his whole body wiggles along with it. It all started 3 days ago, on a Tuesday night. It was pouring rain, one of those summer storms that knocks out the power and turns the dirt roads into mud pits. I was on the porch, smoking a cigarette and watching the rain, with Barnaby lying at my feet. Suddenly, he lifted his head. His ears were erect, the fur on his neck bristled. He was staring at the tree line where the forest begins. It's pitch black out there at night, but he saw something. Barnaby let out a low growl, not the playful growl he makes when we play tug-of-war. This was a guttural, vibrating sound that seemed to come from the deep within his chest. It was fear. "What is it, boy?" I asked, putting out my cigarette. Barnaby didn't look at me. He was fixated on the darkness. And then, he did something he had never done before. He ran. He jumped the low porch railing and bolted toward the forest, barking furiously. "Barnaby, no! Get back here!" I screamed, but the thunder drowned out my voice. He vanished into the trees. I spent an hour calling him. I grabbed my flashlight and raincoat, stepping a bit into the woods, but nothing. The rains washed out any scent or tracks, so I went back inside, soaked and worried. Domestic dogs don't last out in these wilds. There's snakes, cougars, and traps set by illegal poachers. I left my back door unlocked, put out a bowl of fresh food, and sat in the living room, waiting, listening to the rain on the roof. I fell asleep on the couch, but I woke up around 3 a.m. to a sound. Claws on the wooden floor. I jumped. The back door was open. "Barnaby?" He was in the kitchen, standing over his water bowl, drinking, but in a strange way. He wasn't lapping up the water noisily like he always did. Instead, he had his snout submerged in the water, motionless, as if he were absorbing the liquid by osmosis. I sighed with relief. "You idiot," I walked over to him. "You scared me. Where did you go?" He lifted his head. He was wet and covered in mud. There was a smell on his fur, not the smell of wet dog. It smelled like overturned earth and something rotting, something sickly. "Gross, Barnaby. Did you roll in a carcass?" He didn't wag his tail. He just looked at me. Golden retrievers have brown, warm, expressive eyes, but Barnaby's eyes were opaque. There was a milky film over them, and he didn't blink. He stared at me for 10 whole seconds, without moving a muscle, without panting. "Come on, boy. Bath tomorrow. Bed now." I pointed to his bed in the corner of the room. He didn't move. "Bed!" I ordered, more firmly. Barnaby turned his body, not in a fluid motion. It was rigid. First the front paws, then the torso, then the back paws, like a tank maneuvering. He went to his bed and laid down, but he didn't curl up. He laid on his stomach, with all 4 legs stretched out and his head held high, staring at the wall. He must be traumatized, I thought. He saw some animal in the woods and got spooked. I locked the door and went to sleep. The next day, things got worse. The smell didn't come out of him in the bath, and I bathed him with flea shampoo, scrubbing until my arms ached. But the smell seemed to emanate from beneath his skin. In the skin itself, while I was soaping him up, I felt like it was loose. Dogs have loose skin on their necks, I know, but this was different. It felt like his skin was a suit, one size too big for his body. When I pulled out his fur, the skin came away too easily, sliding over the muscles as if it weren't connected. And he was cold. Dogs have a higher body temperature than humans. They're warm to the touch, but Barnaby was freezing, like a slab of steak taken out of the fridge. "You must be sick," I murmured. "Hypothermia, maybe?" I tried to give him a treat. He loves liver biscuits. I placed the biscuit in front of his nose. He sniffed, or pretended to sniff it. Then he opened his mouth and let the biscuit fall inside. He didn't chew, he just swallowed it whole, with a convulsive movement of his throat, like a snake swallowing an egg. I shivered all over. I spent the day working in my home office. Barnaby stayed in the hallway. He didn't sleep. Every time I looked over, he was there, sitting, strangely, too upright. His spine perfectly straight, his front legs stiffly extended. He looked like an Egyptian statue, not a normal dog. And he was watching me. Whenever I turned my head quickly, he was staring, but as soon as our eyes met, he would look away at the floor, as if he were dissembling. That night, I called my ex-girlfriend Clara, who is a vet. Clara, Barnaby's acting weird. He's cold, his skin is loose, he's not eating right, and he's looking at me funny, I said, worried.
Did he vomit? Have diarrhea?
No, he just doesn't act like he used to. He almost seems like a robot.
It must be PTSD if he ran into the woods. Or he might have eaten a poisonous toad. Bring him here tomorrow morning.
Okay, I'll bring him.
Oh, and David? Lock him in the guest room tonight, in case he has rabies or some neurological condition. He might get aggressive.
Barnaby? Aggressive? He's afraid of butterflies, Clara.
Just for safety.
I hung up. I looked at the hallway. Barnaby wasn't there anymore. Boy? I went to the living room. Nothing. Kitchen. Nothing. Then I heard a noise coming from the guest room. The sound of little paws on the floor, but the rhythm was wrong. It didn't sound like 4 paws. It sounded like 2, like human footsteps. I walked to the guest room door, which was ajar, and I pushed it open slowly. The room was dark, lit only by the moonlight coming through the window. Barnaby was there. He was standing, not resting on his hind legs to look out the window, not jumping. He was standing. His hind legs were straight, the knees locked backwards. His torso was upright. His front paws hung by his sides, limp, swaying slightly. He was facing away from me, looking at the wardrobe mirror, watching himself. He tilted his head to the left, then to the right. Then he tried to lift one of his front paws. The toes of his paws moved, not like a dog's paw, which are fused. The toes separated and stretched, making a grasping motion in the air. I heard a sound, a raspy whisper coming from his throat. My bladder let go. I felt warm urine run down my leg. I didn't scream. The terror was absolute. It stole my voice. I took a step back. The floorboard creaked. Barnaby's head turned. Not his body, just his head. It rotated almost 180 degrees, like an owl, to look over at me over his shoulder. The neck twisted, the loose skin like a wet rag. He smiled. Dogs seem to smile when they're panting, tongue out. This wasn't that. The black lips pulled upward, revealing all his teeth, including the molars way in the back. The mouth opened too wide, tearing slightly at the corners. There was no tongue, just a black hole in his throat. I slammed the door shut. I ran to my room and locked the door, pushing my dresser in front of it. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Yesterday's storm must have knocked out the tower's power again. I sat on the bed, clutching a baseball bat, shaking violently. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy footsteps. Bipedal. They stopped in front of my bedroom door. I heard the sound of his breathing through the wood, a wet, bubbling sound. And then the doorknob turned, slowly. The metal knob creaked. It turned left, then right. He was trying to open it with his paws. "Go away!" I screamed. "Get out of my house!" The movement of the doorknob stopped. Silence. Then a voice. It wasn't my voice. It wasn't a movie monster voice. It was a collage of sounds.
Sit. Stay. Good boy. Walk.
He was repeating the words I said to him, but the intonation was wrong. The syllables were cut and pasted like a defective recorder.
David. Biscuit. David. Open.
I started to cry. "You're not Barnaby. What did you do to him?" Silence again. Then I heard a sound that broke my heart. The sound of Barnaby whining. That high-pitched little cry he made when he wanted into my room. It sounded so real. For a second I thought, am I crazy? Is he hurt out there and I locked him out? But then the whine changed. It dropped in pitch. It became deep. It turned into a laugh. A dry, human laugh coming from a dog's throat. He started throwing himself against the door. The door shook. The dresser slid a few inches. That animal weighed 40 kilos, but the force with which it hit felt like 100. The wood of the door began to crack. I looked at the window. 2nd floor. If I jumped, I'd break my legs, but if I stayed, it could be worse. Suddenly, the sound stopped. The footsteps moved away, going down the stairs. I went to the window and peeked, hiding behind the curtain. The front door of the house opened. The thing that used to be my dog walked out. It walked on 2 legs, but grotesquely. The rear knees, which on dogs bend backwards, were forced to bend forwards, popping with every step. The golden torso shone under the moonlight. He walked to the middle of the lawn and stopped. He looked up at my window, knowing I was watching. He raised his right front paw and waved, a rigid human wave. Then he ran into the forest, but he didn't run like a dog. He ran like a naked, deformed man, flailing his arms, disappearing into the darkness. I stayed awake until dawn, and when the sun came up, I grabbed my car keys, the baseball bat, and went downstairs. The house smelled like rot. There were mud marks and viscous slime on my bedroom doorknob, the stair railing, and the fridge. The fridge was open. All the raw meat was gone. The styrofoam trays were all torn on the floor. He ate everything, including the plastic. I ran to the car. As I drove down the dirt road to get out of there, I saw something on the edge of the woods. I stopped the car. It was his collar. Barnaby's red collar. It was lying on the ground near a bush, and next to the collar, the rest. I won't describe it in detail, but what I found there wasn't a whole dog. It was the inside part, as if someone had taken off a dog suit and left the insides behind. The skin was gone. The head was gone. Only the muscles, organs, and bones remained, surgically clean. I vomited right there. I got in the car and drove to the city. I went straight to the police, but I told them an edited version of the story. I said someone broke into my house, killed my dog, and threatened me. I didn't mention the dog walking on 2 legs. They would have institutionalized me. The police went out there. They filed a report. They found Barnaby's remains in the wood. "Probably a jaguar," the sergeant said, "or some psychopath. We'll investigate." I never went back to that house. I'm living in my apartment in downtown Rio on the 15th floor. I sold the house for half its value. If you have a dog and he runs into the woods at night, don't go after him. And if he comes back different, if he looks at you for too long, if he seems to understand what you say a little too well, lock the door and pray. Pray he hasn't learned how to turn the knob.